Hello and good evening, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in to our Walk and Bike Nights, future active transportation options in the Alamo area. We're excited to have our exciting panelists tonight. We'll do a formal introduction to them later. We're going to first tell you what this is all about. We're going to give you a little brief information about the MPO, and we're going to introduce our speakers, and then we're going to let them tell you all about their exciting plans for biking and taking transit options in our area. So once again, we're with the Alamo Area MPO, the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we're going to talk about the future of active transportation options in the Alamo area. So once again, we'll be talking about some local bike plans from TxDOT, Texas Department of Transportation, Advanced Rapid Transit, and more from Via Metropolitan Transit, and the City of San Antonio's Bike Master Plan. So as for housekeeping tonight, if you're watching on YouTube Live, we have YouTube Live here. There should be a chat box where you can ask some questions. We also have the ability, you can call us or text us at 737-471-6388 to provide your questions or provide any other comments. So we look forward to hearing from you all. So you can type in your questions throughout the presentations, and then at the end we will have a Q&A with our awesome speakers tonight. So first off, I want to talk about a little bit about what the MPO is working on lately. So we're talking right now about the future of transportation in our region. So we're working on our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan outreach. It's one of the big documents that we work on. So this is really long-range visioning and what type of transportation options we want to see in our area in the future. So a little bit more about the MPO. We are a federally mandated agency that guides regional transportation planning, including the allocation of federal money on transportation projects in the Alamo area. The MPO also administers programs that improve mobility, air quality, and safety. It is guided by the Transportation Policy Board, made up of elected and appointed officials. So as you can see, we cover anything from bicycling and walking all the way over to highways too. So we are truly regional in that we cover Bexar County, Guadalupe, Comal, and a portion of Kendall counties. So a little bit more about this survey. We have a survey going out right now, and I'll have the link at the end of this presentation so you can scan. And we want to get your feedback on what type of transportation options you use right now, and what type of transportation options you want to see in the future. So these surveys are available in English and Spanish, online and hard copy. And then the survey also the feedback is live. So if you select the results tab at the end, you can see your responses in addition to all the other responses as well. So we look forward to hearing from you. And if you scan this QR code right here, that'll take you to our survey. And if you also type in www.alamoareampo.org/yourmove, that'll also take you to the survey. So once again, we look forward to hearing from you about what type of transportation options you currently use and what you'd like to see in the future. All right, so on to tonight's main event. We look forward to hearing from these three awesome speakers and their organizations about what their plans are for the future for biking and taking transit across our region. So first, we have Darcy Schippel, and she is TxDOT's district planner, and she, depending on the hour of the day, she may be the district ADA coordinator, bicycle and pedestrian coordinator, the air quality specialist, transit planner, freight planner, and she even has played the role of an aviation planner. She truly gets multimodal. With 30 years of experience at the department, she feels like she doesn't know anything, but she knows a lot about everything. We also have Kammy Horne with Via Metropolitan Transit, and she is the Senior Vice President of Development and Planning for Via. And she was responsible for service and capital planning, capital engineering, passenger amenities, and real estate acquisition and management. And she's currently leading many of the VIA efforts implementing new developments for the agency under Keep San Antonio Moving, the voter-approved plan designed to improve the transit system by expanding trips, investing in capital projects, exploring new technology, and putting resources where they are needed. And finally, we also have Tamika Monsterville. She is with the City of San Antonio. She is recently selected to lead the Department of Transportation at the city, which is a newly created department. And she is the director there at the Department of Transportation. And this role, she works with the community, engineers, planners, and other stakeholders to coordinate with the city departments, the MPO, via Metropolitan Transit, Bexar County, and other partners to improve and integrate safe mobility options that support biking, walking, and the city's Vision Zero goals. So a big welcome to all these three fantastic ladies, and we look forward to hear about what they're working on. And yeah, we're going to go and kick it off with Darcy Schippel first, and give us a moment to transition the slides here. Darcy, I'm going to pass the baton over to you. Right. Okay, Darcy.
Oh, I'm trying to grab my mouse. Y'all see my screen? No.
Not yet.
Okay. Try this again. There we go.
And while we're Darcy's getting set up, we do have the link in the chat for our survey. So if you go to that link, it'll take you to our survey. So we'd love to hear from you.
All right. Okay. Is everybody seeing my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's try this again. It said it was. And try this again. There we go. Okay, there we go.
There we go, Darcy.
Okay. Gotta love technology. Okay. And using the clicker in the right place. All right, I think we're ready. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes, go ahead, Darcy.
All right, great. As Joey mentioned, I am Darcy Schippel, and I am the San Antonio District Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator. And I am excited to talk to you about our current planning efforts. As much as I want to talk about where we are headed, and it doesn't hurt to talk a little bit about where we've been. So I'm going to talk about some of the previous efforts, some of our data sources, and then talk about some of the new efforts that will provide a bike plan for the San Antonio district. And then I'm going to highlight some of the other efforts going on at TxDOT as well. So many of you don't know that the San Antonio district encompasses more than just Bexar County. So I wanted to show you what is included in the San Antonio district. This map represents 12 counties that the San Antonio district is responsible for when it comes to planning, designing, constructing, and maintaining our state highway system. For many years, TxDOT has used this map with some variations to look at connectivity in our region, to provide improved shoulders as we look at our preventative maintenance program. We've used this map to decide if any area, decide if any area needed specific connectivity in our region. For example, we may use this map to identify corridors that need special treatments, because cyclists use the corridor for recreational routes or commuting routes, and so we want to make sure that if we have shoulders that are 3 foot or greater, we use a smaller aggregate. And if the shoulders are small or non-existent, we try to stay with the next size aggregate. And then also we work with our partners local governments to design projects within their boundaries. For example, in Schertz, we worked with the city to include shared use paths on projects like 1560. And in San Antonio, we worked with COSA to include shared use paths on UTSA Boulevard, previously State Spur 53. And we have included bike lanes on Northwest Military and Wurzbach Parkway and Blanco Road. But as time changes, so do design criteria that we use. And I'm going to take one quick second.
Darcy, are you still there?
I'm happy to jump in if we want to start.
Okay. Let me switch. Darcy, if you're still there, we'll jump back to you.
Joey, would you like me to go ahead? Or
Yes, go ahead, Kammy.
Oh, okay. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes, looks fantastic.
One more second. Hey, well, good evening, everyone. Just give a hi sign or shout out to me if you can't hear me or if we run into any technical difficulties. But I'm really excited to be here this evening to talk to you a little bit about VIA and our Keep San Antonio Moving Plan. As I was introduced, my name is Kammy Horne. I'm the Senior Vice President for Planning and Development at VIA. So let's just jump right in. And I was happy to see that Darcy also kind of talked about, let's look at, where we were. And I'm actually just starting with 2020 and not going before that time period. But, in 2020, we actually started off pretty well. We started the year with incredible ridership gains, about 6% per month. And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2020. COVID hit, and we dropped by almost 45%. But I will tell you that that is actually a lot less than some of the other systems in the United States saw. Some were actually as high as 90%. But because of the population that we serve and all of those that we serve in San Antonio that have no other options, we maintain service for essential trips, and that is why the drop was not as drastic. So this is a key slide that lets you know who we serve and why our ridership remained somewhat steady, even almost during the complete shutdown during the pandemic. And this is a profile of our ridership. 2/3 of our riders live in households with annual incomes at or below poverty level. Almost 60% do not have a vehicle. And 92% depend on VIA to make trips, and 72% are employed and taking VIA to work. This is just a quick look at our spring survey of our customers. This was last spring, and we received great feedback and high marks from our riders. It's really great to see that all of our pivots during COVID are still resulting in a high level of customer satisfaction as we continue to focus on where people want and need to go. So at the end of 2020, we did have a vote here in San Antonio, a little bit different than what was planned. We did have to make some changes there, but we are now going to be receiving an additional 8 cents in 2026. And you can see all of the support for the vote and the support that was based on the needs for public transportation in the future. And this map really shows how supportive the public was for transit. So voters said yes to all of these key elements, yes to more frequency and reliability, yes to more innovations and better options, and yes to planning for a more mobile future. And I'm going to be talking about some of those exciting options here very shortly. So I know many of you have probably seen this slide, but this slide really speaks to the funding, and it's something that I really like to talk about because not everyone realizes really the disparity in funding when you look at San Antonio across our region, and how that looks even after last November. So in November of 2020, Capital Metro passed a property tax. So Capital Metro just with our neighbors north in Austin, and this year have more than doubled their funding. In 5 years, we will now get up to 227 million, but we will still be behind other major cities in Texas. And I don't think you can ever have a discussion about priorities and plans for VIA without really understanding the story of our funding, because it drives what we're able to do and how we're able to serve so many in our service area. So this particular slide does show per capita funding. And I just wanted to also give the information that our service area is about double that of DART in Dallas and Capital Metro in Austin. Quite similar to Houston Metro, but you can really see here on the slide too, the per capita funding and how that compares across the other metropolitan transit agencies in the state. Now, some good news, recent good news, VIA did receive federal funding relief that we were not expecting through these different federal responses that you can see on the slide here. So about 70 million will cover our additional expenses and loss in revenue because of the pandemic, but we're now able to allocate a significant amount of funding to accelerating our key projects by drawing down these funds for operating and shifting money for other key priorities. This is actually the first time the federal government has allowed us to draw down federal money for operating costs. And so we're now able to move forward a bit more quickly and accelerate our plan and take advantage of opportunities to move the plan forward more quickly. So I'm going to just now get into a little bit of our Keep San Antonio Moving plan and our plans to accelerate some of the exciting things that we're looking at now. So first of all, we are planning to improve our frequency and really try to eliminate the 60-minute service and increase the most frequent service. And frequency is just the key thing for service. And I talk about this a lot. And very basically, frequency drives transit. It makes it easier to use. When you have a service that's more frequent, you don't have to always rely on the schedule. You know, if you miss one bus, another one will be coming right afterwards. And it also really lessens the complications of transferring, right? Because as the more frequent the bus is, the more you know, hey, I can get out there. If I miss some, another one will come, and also facilitates transfers. So that's what we are moving forward to do. And you can see here on the slide that by 2030, all the changes we want to make in increasing frequency and really getting the red out. So removing all that 60-minute service. Super excited about talking about mobility on demand. And mobility on demand, we've had this service in place in the Northeast sector of our service area for a couple of years now. That's a 17 square mile zone. And what is this? Well, our brand for mobility on demand, and I'm going to be talking about Via Link now. So Via Link is a type of service that operates similar to like an Uber Pool or a Lyft shared ride type of a service. You can order it on your phone. It costs the same as a bus pass. And within our zones in the Northeast and most recently opened on October 2nd, Northwest, you can go anywhere within that zone, anywhere to anywhere, and you can also connect to a transit hub and get you into the core network. So we are going to be looking in the future a very quick future this year. Even we opened 2 new zones this year already. And then in 2022, we're looking to open up to 5 more zones. And now I'm going to show you a quick video about the service. And hopefully here we go.
VIA's Keep SA Moving plan includes an innovative new service called VIA Link. It's an on-demand rideshare option that works on the user's schedule. It uses smaller vehicles to travel through neighborhoods, and riders use an app to book trips. It's currently used in one part of San Antonio, and the plan proposes to expand this service to other parts of the city. See how the plan works at keepsamoving.com. VIA's Keep SA.
Super. So we're very excited about the mobility on demand. Happy to talk to anyone offline in the future about this new service. So next I'm going to talk about another key component of our plan, which is our advanced rapid transit. So our advanced rapid transit, if you've heard of bus rapid transit, our advanced rapid transit is looking toward the future to open a couple of new transit lines that are mostly operating in dedicated right-of-way for that transit. And we call it advanced rapid transit because at this time we're looking for the most advanced type of vehicle that we can use, and probably the most similar to a rail type of vehicle that we can get operating in the road network. So you can see on this slide some of the key things that this will provide. It will provide fast, frequent, reliable, high capacity vehicles, dedicated lanes, level boarding, and then off-board fare collection. And I mentioned that some of these things like off-board fare collection, because that type of that is something that really will help speed up the service, as well as the dedicated lanes, which dedicated lanes are great for transit because you're not competing with the traffic. So you know you're going to be able to get from point A to point B within a certain amount of time. And it's also great for the other vehicles in the road who are not behind the bus. So now this is the first transit project that we're moving forward with, which is our north-south corridor. You can see it here on the map. It's 12 miles with planned service of 10 to 15 minutes all day, 7 days a week. I'll also say that it's the first project in San Antonio to be approved to enter the project development phase of the Federal Transit Administration's Capital Investment Grants New Starts Funding Program. Now that's a lot of words, but it means a lot for San Antonio because it allows us to potentially get reimbursed for the work that we're doing now, as well as get funding for a very, very large portion of the work that we're doing in the future. And so this is a huge win-win for San Antonio because not only is it federal money that is coming for the project, but this type of project is also a great enhancement and provides a lot of opportunities for economic development. And we are actually the only major city in the United States to have never participated in this program. But now we're excited, and our opening year for this particular line is 2027. So the second corridor that we're working on, and right on the heels of the north-south, is the east-west. So this project will be the next major corridor developed. We're already in the planning phase for that. 7.3 lines, and you can see on the slide here on Buena Vista and West Commerce Street and East Houston. And so we're very excited about that. And I'm going to talk in just a second too about some of the other, here we go on this slide. We've actually put in for a couple other grants for this line for the Federal Transit Administration's areas of persistent poverty, as well as the Department of Transportation's pilot program for transit-oriented development, both along this, this very, very important line for our city. So overall, we're looking to increase our system coverage by 30%. Now, a lot of that will be through the type of service you saw in that video with the mobility on demand. That type of service really serves us much better in the areas outside of 410, so outside of the core, where it's a little bit less dense and where the road network doesn't necessarily support the regular line service type bus. And it gives our passengers a lot more frequent type of service in those areas. So who benefits? You can see here on the slide all of the great benefits that will be provided across San Antonio and all of those populations. So we're really looking forward to that. Couple things on our partnerships and innovations, because we do have our partners here on the call, and we are working closely with TxDOT. We are partners in the HOV lanes, and you've seen the opening on a few of those recently. We are partnering with them on the operations and maintenance of those HOV lanes, as well as the funding of our I-35 Northeast Park and Pool. And we're doing many other enhancements. We've enhanced our mobile app. So if you have not had the opportunity to download that, our app is new and has many enhanced features. We also working very hard on our facilities. We have a new paratransit operation facility that's opening early next year. So in just a few months, as well as we're looking towards a new operations and maintenance facility for all of VIA. Just a fun fact, the maintenance facility for VIA was built in 1947, and it is the only property in the United States, we're the only transit agency in the United States to house as many buses as we do, so over 500 in at one facility. So we're definitely looking to a new facility in the future. One more thing that I will say is that we are actively hiring bus operators, and I want to get the word out for that. The starting salary there is $20.25, so $20.25, and we also have a sign-on bonus program as well. So I just want to put out the word, and looking forward to a great conversation. So thanks for the opportunity and for the intention tonight. Looking forward to hearing from the other speakers.
Thank you so much, Kammy. It was a lot of great and exciting information about VIA and how we are moving forward in the future. And we have some questions. We'll say those to the end. But yeah, thank you so much. And Darcy, if you're ready, we'll jump back to you.
I am ready.
Awesome. And be sure, if you're listening along, be sure to put your questions in the chat box. And we also have a phone number, 737-471-6388, or you can call or text us your questions as well. So we'd love to hear from you about your questions about anything that's being talked about tonight. Thank you.
All right.
Darcy, go ahead.
Okay, so sorry for that. Sometimes you should plug your computer in. All right, we'll get back and started. So I was talking about some of the bike facilities that we've put in, and I know, again, some of you don't exactly think those are the greatest facilities in the world and that we could do better. And so that's what we're hoping to get to here in the future. So this is just an example of an inventory that was taken back previous to 2019. We were going through a pedestrian inventory collection, and so they said, hey, why not add in bike facilities that we have? This data doesn't take into account where we have wide outside lanes or where we have wide shoulders, both previous forms of accommodations for cyclists when we were planning projects. So looking at this map, you can tell that we have a lot of work to do to make this system. Oh my gosh, hold on. It just went crazy. Today is not Darcy's PowerPoint day. Okay. So using, go back. So, looking at this map, you can tell we have a lot of work to do to make our system more accessible and to connect to the other systems out there, to the local governments that have biking facilities. We're hoping that this new plan will help us identify types of facilities that make sense on the state system, but also connect with our other partner facilities. This is just some of the data that we're using. We purchased Strava data back in 2017. And so we've been historically trying to look at what changes are occurring, what routes we're seeing more cyclists on. We recognize that this isn't perfect data, but it is kind of a start. And we've been sharing this data also with our partners. We also have another planning effort to collect data across the state and to create statewide repository for bicycle counts as well. These are some of the counts that are currently in San Antonio, and these are all maintained by the city of San Antonio, but we are starting to look at getting some of our own traffic counters out there, bicycle counters out there, that would be of a permanent nature that we could start to look at, you know, strategic locations. And unfortunately, we all know that we have crash data. No death is acceptable, but I did want to show what we are tracking and in previous studies and what we've been using in previous studies to look at upcoming district plans. We're looking at systemic problems and developing solutions, interim and long-term, to address the type and severity of bicycle crashes. While many bikeways are planned and funded at the local level, TxDOT has decided it is well positioned to develop regional visions for bikeways on the state network that will improve safety and connectivity and access within and between TxDOT districts. This plan will develop a regional framework for the state and the districts to provide connectivity across the state. We will be working with a consultant contract that we currently have in place, and we are anticipating that the district work will begin in the spring. There will be 4 district plans that will come out of this effort, and San Antonio is one of them. College Station, Houston, and also Laredo will have plans available to them as well. Part of the bike planning effort will be to look a little bit closer at the Texas tourism trail routes in this district and identify specific opportunities and alternatives for implementing the tourism trail. This map is an excerpt from the Transportation Tourism Trail study for the San Antonio district. You'll notice that the dark blue is the cross-state spines. These are routes of statewide significance which connect major urban areas. And the darker brown is a connecting spur which connects state and national parks and other destinations. And you may notice that this matches the Great Springs Trail that is gaining in popularity and becoming regionally significant as a discussion item. The light gold, which may be a little bit hard to see on here, are considered regional routes, and these connect scenic areas and are frequently regional loops. I think of Garner State Park routes that connect Leakey and Utopia to the Garner State Park area. So since we have, I think I have a little bit of time left, I just wanted to make note that we have a number of other efforts going on. We have significant bicycle and pedestrian safety campaigns that focus on how together we can have a safer system. Most of you may be aware that TxDOT has a goal of 0 fatalities by 2050, and our commission has been putting a huge emphasis on improving safety, including $600 million in 2020 and another $600 million in 2021 on safety projects. Other things that are going on, TxDOT updated its guidance as part of a series, its bicycle guidance as part of a series of revisions to the state roadway design manual. The new bikeway design guidance is intended to assist engineers in determining safe and comfortable bicycle accommodations that are appropriate to the land use, context, and the roadway characteristics, and accommodate the interested but concerned bicyclists. The guidance was developed based on national research standards and guidelines that are rapidly evolving. Projects that are still in the early stages of development must comply with the new guidance. So you will begin to see more separated bike facilities, and shared use paths included on TxDOT roadway projects across the state, replacing the shared lane concept of our past. I also wanted to mention that TxDOT has a long-standing statewide committee of citizens who advise the department on policies that affect bicycling and walking, including the design, construction, and maintenance of the highways. This year, the committee was formally expanded to include pedestrian issues. And as part of that expansion, 2 new members were selected that would represent accessibility and pedestrians. San Antonio is lucky to be represented by Zach Maglanes, and I am so sorry, Zach, if you're listening and I pronounced your name wrong, who is an educator and a walking college fellow with America Walks. For more information on the advisory committee and any other things that are associated with bike and ped, please go to TxDOT.gov and you can put in bicycle or pedestrian in the search bar and it will take you to all things TxDOT and biking. And I just want to say thank you and forgive me for my battery and for me not having it plugged in. And thanks again for having me speak.
Thank you so much, Darcy. It's really exciting to hear about those plans, especially I think the TxDOT district plans and the plans across the state really caught my attention. So I think, yeah, a lot of us can't wait to learn more about that and be involved in that process. So thanks for all that information from you and TxDOT as well. Now we're going to move on to Tamika Monsterville, our director of the city's Department of Transportation. Tamika, take it away. Tamika, before you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. This is the Bob.com panel tonight. We got Kammy and Darcy in the house. They won't throw up their signs for their names. I won't bring that up. Inside joke. They had a multimodal maiden group a little while ago. Some of y'all might have heard about this crew. They have the Set Signals multimodal mavens, I think they're called. But I just want to thank AMPO for giving us giving us the opportunity to talk about the great work we're all doing with our respective organizations. And it's perfect that I follow Darcy because it's all about that bike, right? Okay. So we just want to share with you, I'm Tamika Monsterville from the city of San Antonio, and we want to talk about what we're doing to elevate the use of our roadway network for bicyclists. So many of you know, in 2011, we had our San Antonio Bike Master Plan. And included in that Bike Master Plan, which was adopted by our council, was an implementation strategy, or what we're going to include in our future update is an implementation strategy. So if you think about where we were a decade ago, literally just past 10 years now, we had a plan that included a number of data points. It included an inventory of where we were and where we needed to be in order to move people. And what we're trying to do today is to elevate the mobility options and elevate the use of our road. As Darcy mentioned, we have a lot of work to do at the local level, at the state level. In partnership with VIA, we need to move from just a shared use path, but to actual infrastructure specifically for cyclists. And the way we're going to do that is there are some key elements of the 2022 Bike Master Plan update. We're utilizing our Equity Atlas. The city's Equity Atlas really speaks to where we are. So as we make plans and work with the community to develop the bike infrastructure that they want in their communities, we have an idea of what the impact is to the communities we serve and the way they want to move and what some of the barriers are in providing accessible bike networks and bike facilities for them. You know, we're going to include in this plan funding and implementation strategies. I think in our work, we go to the community and we say, yeah, what do you want? But do we really have an implementation plan and a funding strategy? So what we want to see in the city with this plan is really a roadmap as to how we get there. Is it a combination of working with Darcy and the team at TxDOT to identify where we leverage funds? And if it's one of those regional networks of bicycle infrastructure, how can we leverage the taxpayer dollars and not put good money after bad and work together to make sure that we're addressing the multimodal connections that need to be highlighted? And also, the update is going to really focus on sustainable infrastructure, things that we can maintain, things that help us reduce the heat island effect in many of our communities. And that's the goal. And one of the things that was discussed today in the council meeting was the Howard W. Peak Greenway Trail Network. That's going to be one of the hallmarks of this new plan, is the integration of the Howard Peak Trail Network into the plan. Because the reality is, as Kammy noted, we are in need of bus operators for our transit system. And in order for us to really create alternatives for our residents and for the region, we need to complete the Howard Peak network and connect it to all of the great trails that are within the TxDOT region in our district and really in the state. So these are some of the challenges. I think Darcy led in with a lot of the existing bike infrastructure gaps. We will be looking at where those gaps exist. We're going to also have a component of the plan that's going to look at what are some of the policies. We have a lot of policies within our Uniform Development Code that are antithetical to our bike master plan and to our bike goals and to the city's goals, the state infrastructure and design guidelines. So one of the key challenges is addressing where we don't talk to one another. And we're actually working with our Development Services Division to integrate improvements where we can with the UDC. So as we talk about these challenges, the city and many departments, the Public Works Department, our SAPD, we're all working in this Vision Zero realm to make sure that we make infrastructure for cyclists safe, and that we not only educate the cyclist and the pedestrian, but also address the behavior of everyone who uses our roadway, whether it's an automobile driver, a freight driver, a bus driver, really understanding that one of our biggest challenges is that our behavior, we are all just out of pocket in so many different instances. We have pedestrians who, I raise my hand, jaywalk. We have cyclists who get out in front of cars and buses. We have automobile drivers who get in front of freight operators. We have freight operators who operate on roadways that are not designated for them. So all of us are kind of out of pocket. So we're looking at our Bike Master Plan as an opportunity to reset and develop this consistent network that really focuses on what are the hallmarks and what are the key tenets of a safe bicycle network. And the most important piece for the city and the Department of Transportation here is stakeholder support and input. Our stakeholders, our external stakeholders, are our community members, and making sure their voice is heard, whether they ride a bike or not. We want to hear what they think about bike infrastructure in the city and what we can do to make it better and what we can do to actually improve access. And as I spoke about earlier, implementation. This implementation plan will include a 3 to 5 year, short-term, tactical, 1 year, and also beyond that 5-year horizon, in tandem working with our partners in the city and working through this bond process, identifying how can we leverage the available funds federally, in the state, our partners at the state, and also the work that VIA is doing in terms of connections, transit-oriented connections. So we have a number of opportunities, and I think the panelists have done a great job of sharing the great work that they are doing and leveraging funding and coordinating across the districts and across the city to identify where do we connect. So one of the biggest connecting documents that the city has, which I am super excited about, is SA Tomorrow. So SA Tomorrow is a program of 3 plans: our comprehensive plan, which speaks to the land use, our sustainability plan, and also our multimodal plan. We want to improve the experience of residents and visitors, whether they're riding a bike, whether they're on a scooter or walking or driving or on a tour bus. And we believe that these opportunities are going to be manifested in the plan that we developed together as a part of commuting options. And that's something that I want to emphasize as the director of this department. We are challenged in developing all of these plans during a pandemic. And this is our first pandemic, my first pandemic in my lifetime, but I know it won't be the last one. And it's critical and important that right now we focus on where we're going to be and to be forward thinking and identify how can we develop and build and design facilities that are sustainable in terms of pandemics. If we need to keep social distance norms and we need 6 feet between people on a trail, how do we do that? And what are the standards, the guidelines, and the policies we need to enact to ensure that once we build a 8-foot multi-use path, that it's not obsolete and cannot accommodate the health challenges that we might face in the future. So this plan is really going to be our opportunity to prepare for the future, hope for the best, but be prepared so that we don't have to take tax dollars and widen a multi-use path when we should have made it 14 feet and it's only 10. Those are the things that we're going to be looking at. We have a lot of opportunities to connect with transit services and put transit islands in locations where the Strava data that Darcy shared with us, we see where all of this activity is in terms of bicycle activity. And we can also, there's a correlation. People ride the bus and they take their bike on the bus. We can develop transit islands and integrate design into our plan so that we don't force a pedestrian to play chicken at the bus stop or the intersections in our city. So many of the priorities I've discussed, equity, but as Darcy alluded to, Vision Zero is a national program, international really, but nationally the goal is to design better spaces. And that is what TxDOT is doing. That is what VIA is doing as a part of their ART program and the bus stop improvements that they make, and making sure that our bike master plan features prominently equitable design and typologies for roadways. If it's a collector street, if it's a wide street, if it's a street that has a speed of 35 miles per hour or higher, that infrastructure needs to be protected and separated from automobiles. These are things that we know for a fact based on industry research, that if you are on a bike path or in some form of bike infrastructure and you are not protected and the speeds are over 35 miles per hour, statistically, you're probably going to die. That's it, and that's all. And so what we have to do in partnership with AMPO and our partners in our neighboring counties and cities is we have to work to develop and design spaces where people can be safe, first and foremost, that automobile drivers can be safe, and that network is flexible for changing health demands that we have. And also, we have to measure our success. One of the key elements of the plan I'm looking forward to is having goals, and that implementation plan and that funding strategy is going to be critical to that. So again, the Equity Atlas, here's another map that shows some of our infrastructure. Just like Darcy mentioned, this is a great lead-in following Ms. Darcy, let me tell you. Just like she mentioned, we have a lot of work to do, but the most critical thing that we're changing in our perspective is the culture. We're changing the way we think about how people move. And the reality as I sit in this position in this city at this time is that we are challenged and we're in the middle of what they're calling the Great Resignation. People are changing the way in which they live. They're changing the ways in which they work, and some people are not working now. And what that means is we are at the front line of this in terms of transit service. It's challenging to hire transit operators. So that means the frequency of bus service, you may not have the frequency you had before because we're challenged with getting bus operators. That's the reality. And what I see for the future of San Antonio specifically is this bike master plan is speaking to the third rail in many instances. This is the third arm of our transportation and mobility. And what I see in our future is automobiles, bicycles, and transit on their networks operating and elevating the use of our roadways such that people will have an alternative mode if they can't afford to get a via bus pass. if they can't afford to purchase a car and maintain a vehicle, they can afford to purchase a bike and ride this new bike network in the city of San Antonio that complements the SA Tomorrow, that speaks to the tenets of Activate SA and SA 2020 and all of these programs that we have. The goal is to just be able to move people. It doesn't matter how much money you make, where you live, you got to move. And we want to be facilitators in helping people to move in the direction and the places where they want to be. So with that in mind, we're going to initiate our procurement for the Bike Master Plan this winter and hopefully award a contract to a wonderful and amazing firm that's going to do great dynamic work in the spring or summer of 2022. And we're going to start off by kicking off with public engagement that's going to begin with a survey of our city. And our SA Speaks survey is going to be asking people what they think about bikes, because that's how you start. And that's the goal of this department, is to collect data, to maintain data so that we can inform and educate and use that data when we request funds from our council, from our taxpayers, from the federal government and the state government. We have the data that supports our ask. And with that, I just say thank you so much to AMPO, and thank you for allowing me to join these dynamic transportation experts on the panel.
Well, thank you so much too, Tamika. That was really exciting. I know as soon as I heard that, this is coming through the pipeline, then it got approved in the budget, I was, extremely excited about it. It's something that's been talked about in our community, especially the bike community, for a long time. So definitely excited to see what the future holds for the Bike Master Plan and, all active transportation forms in our community, especially, summing it up from all three of y'all. I think, getting around by foot, bike, bus, everything, hopefully all these plans and implementation of these plans really makes it far easier to get around in the future. So thank you, Tamika, thank you, Kammy, and thank you, Darcy, all for presenting tonight. So I want to ask you all some questions. Before I do want to once again remind the folks who are still viewing that the MPO has a survey. It's our long-range transportation survey. We want to get opinions on how you get around and how you'd like to get around in the future. Maybe it's on an e-bike, maybe it's on a e-scooter, maybe you'd love to use your 2 feet, and maybe you also want to get around on a bus, maybe an autonomous bus or something in the future. We'd love to hear it. We're about to put that link in the chat box. And so also, if you have questions for our speakers, use the chat box on YouTube Live, or you can also use our telephone number at 737-471-6388. So first question, I guess to all three of y'all, it's about experiencing our infrastructure. And I guess, what are your experiences of taking a bike and bus to get around our community? Do you do that? Have you ever done it in our community? And how has that influenced you and what you do on a daily basis? I guess I'll start off. We'll go around how we started. Darcy, would you like to go first?
Okay, so I'm guilty. I have tried everything, but I still prefer my car. But I have ridden my bike down on the missions, and I have taken the bus to go to training at VIA, actually, because they told us that parking was not going to be good. And so I did get on the bus, and it was okay. I missed the first bus because I was just a little bit late, and it wasn't that long of a wait. It was from Blossom Field. So I think those are options that we have. I currently don't live in a location where it's easy to just hop on transit. But, I think, as I've lived in this environment, as I've planned in this environment, if I had the opportunity to go find a new home, I might look for those opportunities to be able to hop on a bus or hop on a bike to get to where I needed to go. So I think we just have to introduce that to our community, and we have to get people to kind of think about how can they make alternate trips. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Awesome, thank you. And my favorite is making those alternate trips your primary trips on active transportation. I had to plug that in real quick. Kammy, and I know some of you all maybe have not lived in San Antonio for very long either, so you can carry those experiences from other places into this perspective as well. Go ahead, Kammy.
Well, thank you so much for the question. I will say that as of last June, I gave up my car entirely. Now, I will say a couple things. One is that I do live in a location that I find it, I think, easier perhaps to use transit. And then I work for VIA. So it was really important for me. This is a choice that I made for many reasons. But one is that I do work for VIA, and I think I wanted to experience firsthand everything that goes into not having a car. So I walk, I ride my bike, and I take the bus, and I pretty much take the bus every day. And for me, again, it's part of what I do and part of what I'm able to experience. So our new mobile app, anything that we put in that is new, and then just on a day-to-day basis, really thinking through what it means to use transit in our city. So maybe I'll just throw out a challenge to folks to maybe try it one day, or maybe just try it one morning, or just one trip. And I do think that sometimes it can be intimidating for people, which is why I talk about frequency, that it's important to have frequent service, because it is sometimes intimidating to look at a bus schedule if you've never tried it before. But after a bit, it gets easier to use transit. So I would encourage those who might be thinking about it, just give it a try. And VIA is always here if you have questions, if you need help. Check out our website too, because we're going to have the 5 steps of how to use transit, and it's right up there, and it's how to ride, and first user's guide is up there. So give it a try, and thanks for the question.
Awesome, and I think tag on to that, transit buddies maybe is a thing, because I know there's some cycling groups. I know there's some great cyclists in our community who will ride with other cyclists to get to their destination, get to work. And I will say, if anybody wants to help riding transit, I'll volunteer for that too. Or even post it on social media if you're riding your bike or if you're taking transit to work as well. I can just add on to that real quick. So thanks for that response. Tamika.
I drive every day, and when Kammy told me she made the commitment to take transit, I said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my pass. So I'll get my bus pass. And I did actually, before I took this job in August, when my husband and I visited, I did download the app and try to ride, but it was in the height of COVID. So it was a little challenging. But I think, that's what it's about. It's about experiencing what transit users, what cyclists experience. My first time actually being able to ride my bike to work with Bike to Work Day with you guys, earlier this year or this summer was the first time I was able to do it. Because I've pretty much commuted using everything except a bike. I have done commuter bus from Annapolis, Maryland into DC, and then I would get off the commuter bus on the hill and then walk down to USDOT headquarters. Or if I was just feeling rather lazy or tired, I would just take the Metro train. I didn't buy my first car until I was probably 26, 27, because I lived in Washington, D.C., and I pretty much got everywhere I needed to go on a train or bus. So, and I think when you grow up in an environment where you don't have a car, but I think living in this region, and I'm thinking of the region, there are many people who can't afford to get a bus pass. They can't afford to purchase a car, but they live in the outskirts of our city. But they're still in the city, but it's kind of rural. And I think that's important to think about when we talk about connectivity and we talk about this bike network and how people want to get around. The reality is that many parts of our city and region, we can't put bus service there because there is no sidewalk, there is no infrastructure. And I think that's the conversation that we need to be having for people to understand context. I have family who live in metropolitan areas and I have family who live in rural areas. And the reality is you're going to be relegated to no jobs or high paying jobs if you can't get there. And that's what I feel for people who live in, you know, those portions of Comal or Kendall County where they want to get to jobs that are in other parts of our region, the Southwest or Northwest or, you know, Southeast parts. But because they can't get to a bus stop, that's why Via Link is so important. But I also, my goal as a transportation expert is to give people choices. And the reality is a lot of people don't have a choice. So if my little brother, when he was growing up in Mississippi, my parents had to buy him a car in order to get a job because he lived in this small town, you know, an hour outside of the major metropolitan area, and there were no jobs there. So we have to look at other alternatives because it's going to take TxDOT, you know, several funding year cycles to put the sidewalk in that part of Kendall or Guadalupe where Via could expand and put bus service. That's the reality. That's the conversation that we need to have so that people understand I want bus service, and it doesn't matter how much Via bus service costs. If TxDOT can't put a sidewalk there for them to get there safely, we're forcing them to be in an unsafe situation. So having these conversations are really good. And one of my commitments to myself is I want to start taking more trips by transit, and I want to make the city safe so that I feel comfortable traveling on our roadways to get to work. And that's why the Bike Master Plan is so critical to being able to create the barriers that are necessary on the roadways for bicyclists to have more direct routes to. And if not, they can get on the Howard Peak Trail and use that as a commuting network.
Definitely. Let's continue breaking down those barriers for transportation. Love to hear that. And so I guess one thing that you're all talking about here too, what I'm hearing is, some of y'all have taken transits, as somebody who took transit this morning to get to work, had to walk here. I walked to the bus stop this morning because I didn't feel like getting, wet from water flying off my bike tires. Haven't put some fenders on there yet, but one thing I'm hearing is, also the pedestrian side of things. And I'm wondering if maybe how some of your plans are factoring in, that pedestrian aspects or, pedestrian infrastructure and pedestrian safety as well. And if I know these are, bike master plans, advanced rapid transits, but is it also considering, pedestrian safety, pedestrian infrastructure in mind, or, how those two different uses, merge or use the same space in some areas? Yeah. Anybody have want to go around the room again or
quickly? So, currently TxDOT is going through our transition planning effort, which is associated with ADA, which is a whole nother topic that we could talk about. But we are inventorying, our whole system, and we have a good idea about where we have sidewalks that aren't really passable, and where we have barriers. And so I think we're taking a really proactive effort to identify those. And then in our current planning, every roadway project that we're building right now will have sidewalks on it, especially in the urban area. And we're also considering sidewalks in our what we would consider our smaller urban areas. So like the small towns like Kerrville, Floresville, even Lavernia. So we're looking at those, and and TxDOT has the federal funds that come down for transportation alternatives for those outer areas that aren't part of the MPO. And so we're funding that type of infrastructure as well. So pedestrian safety is important to us. Our traffic operations are doing a number of mid-block crossing type projects where we know we have pedestrians that want to be on the other side of the road, if it's based on where that bus stop is located at, or they want to get from their apartment to go eat dinner. And so we're looking at what that looks like on some of our large corridors that may not have signalized intersections. So we're working with the city to look at that. We also work with VIA to provide connectivity to their bus stops. We had a pretty significant, probably over $20 million that we spent on a MyLink program with VIA to provide connectivity to their bus stops, and make sure that people could get off the bus stop and get where they needed to go and that they weren't on an island out there. So I'm excited about those programs and seeing those forward into the future.
And we were very excited about that program too, Darcy. And I'll say, you know, to answer that question, of course, it is part of our planning, and we do rely on TxDOT and the city also for you know, accessible the access and the sidewalks up to our stops. And I think it's been a great partnership, and we look forward to even better partnerships. And it's great again to be on this panel and talking to Tomika and Darcy. It's a great question, and it's something that again that we rely on our partners to support.
We also here in the city are working with TxDOT and VIA. Our budget for 2022 includes 28 mid-block crossings to be installed. And that's the result of, historically, when we think about our city and its growth, you know, most of these roadways were highways. This was the highway network. And so now the land use has changed, it's denser, but we still did not think about, because 20th century mindset, we were building for the car. And we have to just acknowledge, okay, that was how we built things. But as Darcy said, you know, we have things that we need to do differently. And in doing things differently, we will be installing these mid-block crossings because we know we designed our roadways with the sole express purpose of moving cars quickly. And so now, with the density, many people want to create communities. They already have communities, but they want to create more activity within their community, and having safe places to cross the street is really paramount for a lot of our roadway network, and making sure that we work with TxDOT and our engineers here in the city to identify what's the ideal place for those mid-block crossings to occur such that it doesn't impede or obstruct the signal operations, but also that it creates a safe place for people to want to walk, because no matter what you ride, drive, or get in, you are always ultimately a pedestrian. And so that's a really great question, Joy.
Awesome, thanks. And yeah, I agree, always a pedestrian. I feel like, you know, that's one thing people forget about as soon as, like, you know, I say, oh, I can drive a car, but as soon as you step out of your car, even when you're walking across the parking lot to the grocery store, you're a pedestrian. And, you know, it's one of our most vulnerable road users. And we also, you know, need to look at that and consider that as well. And, you know, one thing I'm noticing here too is, if some of the folks on here haven't noticed, there's a lot of synergy between the three of y'all and, you know, the three of the agencies represented here today, and coordinating our projects and funding and, you know, hopefully making it safer for us to get around. Let us know, Tamika. So one thing, I did get one question, and remember, folks, if you're still on the call, see there's quite a few folks still watching, be sure to ask us some questions that you want our great panelists to answer. One question that we did receive is from Daniel Day, and so Daniel, he sits on the VIA Transit Community Council at VIA, and said he mentioned the other day how local cyclists, how VIA should be working with local cyclists on developing procedures and protocols, and how buses should interact with bus stops with bike lanes in that same space. And so yes, this also, you know, this is VIA, but also this also touches on, you know, the city of San Antonio, TxDOT, and other, you know, jurisdictions as well. But he specifically is talking about, he noted that the new bike lanes on Alamo, which are being implemented right now, the new protected bike lanes on Alamo Street downtown, talking about how, you know, that interaction and, you know, possible conflict zones within that space, you know, from, you know, especially in this manner, you know, how bus stops are designed to, you know, provide minimal impacts with pedestrians and cyclists. And so with that question, he's asking if will VIA, and in this case, the city of San Antonio TxDOT, work on a set of protocols and procedures, on how to address, those potential conflict points to make it a safe environment and comfortable environment for all the users, people getting off the bus, people bike riding, people walking, etc. So I'll let y'all, Kammy, if you want to go first, or
Sure. It's a great comment. I experienced that because I bike around too. It's a great comment, and I appreciate the comment. And definitely everything that we're doing in our planning, in our future plans, we look at safety as one of the key components. And you're specifically talking about, I think, conflict points with bike lanes. And it is a very important and key consideration. That with our partners at the city, I'll let Tomika to answer this more specifically with the bike lanes. I just think it's an important comment. I appreciate it, and obviously we'll continue to focus on safety and as we do with all of our plans.
Yeah, Deborah Scarvin, who's our accessibility compliance manager here with the city, is working. We're actively working with Cammy's team over at VIA addressing it because it's a construction project, it's underway, and there are a lot of questions. And this is one of the city's first foray into having this type of design. So what I will say is that we're going to learn a lot of lessons, but it's also a first step towards recognizing that we can separate the cyclist from the roadway and the roadway still function. And all of us collectively on this call know what the requirements are, what the procedures and policies that govern the operation of bicycles and bus operators and really just vehicles in the public space. But I think this is going to be a test for us. We're going to see how how they experience this design, and it's going to help us improve our design on other corridors. But, we're working with the Development Services Division and VIA with the update of the UDC, and that's going to be critical to informing how we interact and educating people. It's like I said earlier, all of us have been out of pocket and, not following the rules. And if you learn to ride a certain way and, just ride faster and you can pass the cars, and we have to recognize that everyone does not have familiarity with operating on roadways with multiple modes. So that's the first thing I will offer. The second thing is that our goal here today is to make sure that we're not developing plans that are antithetical to how the roadway functions. And that happens through these conversations and through the process of doing innovative things like what's happening on Alamo, and doing our after action report to identify where we can do it better and where we can improve, because we all come from our respective areas of expertise. And by the time many of these projects get designed and then get built, there's still so much that has changed. And we've had a pandemic since this roadway was designed. So are there things we probably would have done differently? Perhaps. So I'm looking forward to just working with our public works team and our compliance on the accessibility side and with the VIA team to figure out how we make this an experience that cyclists and automobile users and bus operators can understand and operate safely in.
So I don't know that I can add anything really additional to what Kammy and Tomika did, but I'll just say, Daniel, I appreciate so much that you continue to be involved in these conversations and that you continue to highlight challenges that are out there, because we know in a shared space there are going to be challenges, and a lot of that's going to take some patience and some consideration along the way, and maybe some redesign along the way. And so again, thanks for staying engaged, Daniel, and look forward to more conversations about what some of these new facilities, how they operate, and the impacts on each individual, whether it be a pedestrian, a cyclist, or an automobile.
Great feedback all around. I'd love to, again, everybody's working together to, you know, again, make this safer, more comfortable for folks to get around. And, you know, bringing up this point about, you know, folks staying involved and bringing up these issues that we're experiencing. And, you know, as somebody who, you know, walks and bikes and takes transit options, I try to take pictures, you know, dialogue as much as I can, but sometimes I don't get a chance to like report it to the proper folks. But, you know, especially these bike plans coming up, you know, things that may happen, you know, that maybe the city or TxDOT or VF can fix. How can folks continue to stay involved? You know, whether it's, you know, like reporting things in 311 or getting involved in committees, you know, locally or statewide. What can folks do to, you know, help inform this process? You know, give their lived experience of, you know, using these different types of infrastructures. Also, maybe from other places around the nation and the world. How can they? And I know I'm queuing this up. I know Tamika will have to, you know, jump off a little bit to go to one of our important bonds committee hearing meetings tonight. But how can folks get more involved in the process, and especially that, you know, are most important to you right now, that you see most important to you in this process?
I think right now, the most engagement is going to occur now with the bond program. I think when you think long-term, being active with the bond meetings where you can and giving your comment, I always tell people it's great to get up to the mic in the public for the public record, but really sending letters to your elected officials and letting them know what your needs are, which I think is really critical to making sure that what you want is out there. And then 311, we are not everywhere. You know, I think you have a different experience when you walk down the street compared to when you ride a bike on the street compared to when you experience it on a motorcycle or in a car or on a bus. And so the city has over 10,000 employees, but we don't see everything. So we need residents and visitors to let us know in 311. I can take calls, our staff, our respective staff can take calls, but what's important to us when we make recommendations as city staff is to have the data. And the way we record that data is through 311. So if you contact 311 and you might call me or say, hey, Tamika, there's an ADA issue or there's an issue with something here, but having a record of it is what helps us make our recommendations. We can make a recommendation, just say, oh, I have a hunch we might need a bike lane. But if I have 17,000 311 calls in an area, that's speaking volumes, and that gives legitimacy and validity to the recommendations that staff make. So I think as a system of record, 311 is really important to share what it is you see and observe and take pictures. You can submit your pictures to 311 and send it to me directly. Send it to me, and I will direct it to one of our team members who works on those specific issues, and we will follow up on them. But I definitely want to encourage people to do 311.
So I'll just jump in. I tell people this regularly. If you don't like the way a project looks, did you come to our public meeting? And, you know, we're getting a whole lot better. This whole pandemic has opened up a whole new way of us trying to communicate with the community. You know, we are getting more people that are tuning in on our virtual meetings. We're, you know, able to provide the virtual meeting for a lot longer period of time. It's not always live, it's recorded. So the more we can make comments about what types of facilities you want to see, what things are important to the community, really does help. You know, we really do come out to the public and we really do ask, how do you want to see it? What do you want to see? And, you know, I think that's really one of the best ways. You know, TxDOT's on social media. You can go to our webpage and you can put questions and comments in there. And I know we're a big state agency, 12,000 employees, but when you say you're from San Antonio or you're from Kerrville or you're from, you know, in our district region, those comments and questions do get filtered directly to us to respond to. And I do keep a list. I have a running list that these are places where people need a sidewalk, where there's a lack of a curb ramp, or, hey, I need to bicycle. I want to get on my bicycle and I want to go to school in the morning, or, I want to feel comfortable sending my kids to school. And they could ride if they had a bike lane, or if you had a 10-foot wide shoulder, a sidewalk or shoulder. So please just communicate that with us. And we love to have the conversation. So please, any way you know how to communicate with TxDOT, you do it.
And I will just say that, hopefully everyone can hear the passion that is coming from all of the speakers tonight, because I think I can speak for all of us that we do care, and we do want to hear from everyone about how to make transportation better for our city and our region. So I will say for VIA, viainfo.net is our website, and you can fill out a form. You can also call us with any comments, concerns, or suggestions, and I'll give you that phone number, which is 210-362-2020. And so, yeah, we definitely always want to hear from our customers, and I think, like was just said by the other speakers, we get comments on a daily basis and respond to them. And also on bigger things, we, of course, for our work session and our board meetings, there is always that time for citizens to be heard. So I'll just put a plug out for that. Yeah, thanks. So we definitely want to do everything we can to make the service as excellent as it can be.
Awesome. And one thing I'm gathering here too, in addition to just like getting that, in a way, like, we're working for government, working for the government, we're working for our customers, which are the, general public, taxpayers, et cetera, trying to get that, good customer service. But a lot of what I'm hearing too is the data portion is that, the data really matters, from like 301 data, TxDOT, via like, send us all the data, because sometimes even when we're planning things, we don't know the smallest little things are happening, that maybe there's, maybe there's a bunch of water sitting in front of this one bus stop or bike lane or something. We need to know about it. So yes, folks, if you're hearing this, let everybody know, what your problems are, so we can help fix it, hopefully. So we're getting close to our time. I'm going to try to at least answer one of these questions. Got a couple of questions in our chat box here. And so I've got 2 questions here. Let's see if we can answer them within the next 5 minutes. We're going to try to close this off within the next 6 minutes or so. But we have a first question is what are the plans to connect various communities that have bike lanes within their residential streets with each other outside 1604? And then the other one is probably geared towards VIA. It is most of the Primo bus stops have real-time bus arrivals, which are really useful. Is there plans for more real-time bus displays at other transit points across the city? So one's about bike lanes, the other one's about bus service and transit displays.
Tamika, you want to take the bike lanes first?
Yes, ma'am. So our goal is with the bike master plan is to come up with typologies. So based on the roadway, the width, the type of road that it is, if it's a residential street or if it's a major arterial, we want to look at all of the streets in the city and say, okay, based on this street, the land use and the functions, whether or not it has transit or not, then prescribe what is the minimum bike infrastructure it should have. If it needs to be a multi-use path, or if it needs to be protected, separated, or if it just needs to be a lane. And one of the things we're piloting this year is the Safe Streets concept. So the team is collecting data on a number of streets like Woodlawn, El Paso. These are some of the streets that are coming up where the width isn't that wide. It's under 5,000 trips a day. The speed is below 35, where we can actually change the color of the asphalt to denote, this is a roadway for bikes. So, there are 4,000 plus lane miles of roadway here. If an automobile driver has to go a block over, shaking my bones, crazy thought. but we want to create a network and change the color of the asphalt so that it's, you know, it's less striping. It's okay, this is a road that's 30 feet wide. We can just change the color and people know east, west, north, south. You can ride your bike. You can take up the whole lane. So that's one of the things we're piloting this year with our bike infrastructure maintenance program. But definitely for those neighborhoods outside of 1604, you will not be left behind. This bike plan is going to have what the minimum standards and needs are related to bicycle infrastructure for you. It's based on the roadway type, and that's what our plan is with the Bike Master Plan.
And so on the real-time bus arrival, yes, so we have those so you mentioned the Primo routes, and then some of our other types of stops where we have high ridership as well. So we're constantly looking at, you know, the ridership along our routes and what those stops should accommodate in terms of types of shelters and other information like the real-time bus arrival. In terms of in the future, it's really it's a constant look at you know, really where we can prioritize funding and put that additional type of infrastructure in. I know it's very, very useful. And I will say, so for those that do have a smartphone, I do want to put a plug out for our new app, because our new Go Mobile app links to the transit app. And what that does, it actually allows you to see where your bus is along the route. And so when you're gonna get there, and then if you're unfamiliar with an area and you put in your stop and you get on the bus, it'll actually tell you when it's time to get off the bus and how to get to your destination. So we are trying in many, many ways to innovate and again, to prioritize our funding, and we'll continue to do so. And I will say for our new projects, our advanced rapid transit, that will definitely have all of that type of infrastructure in it as well. So thanks for the question. Yeah.
Awesome. Good to hear all around, and you know, great feedback on that. To be conscious of everybody's time, I know, you know, Tamika's got to run over to the convention center for one of our first bond committee hearings tonight. Do want to, you know, close this up real quick. I know there's one more question in the chat. I'll try to send that around to y'all. It's about e-bike ridership. I'll send that back out to y'all. So as we close, you know, just want to say thank you again. Want to all of you fantastic ladies here in the room, and fantastic leaders in our community for transportation, for advancing active transportation, especially in regards to biking and transits. So thank you once again. And before we go, would any of you like to provide any closing comments before you go?
And can we all say thank you together? Because you've been a great moderator.
Oh, thank y'all.
Thank you, Joey. And the MPO. I don't have any closing remarks other than please stay tuned for all the plans that are going on and participate in them and help us make San Antonio a more bikeable, walkable area along with our San Antonio district.
Thank you. All right, any other closing comments, y'all? All right, well, thank you all once again, and thank you to our loyal viewers tonight. We hope you learned something, and we'll be sharing this. It's going to be a YouTube video. We'll share it with folks in our social media, and you can share it with others as well. So thank you all for joining in tonight, and y'all have a good rest of your nights.